in Krakow, the second largest city in Poland and former capital.
Krakow is a quaint city that is full of history, but also good for youngsters.
Poland is famous for being one of the cheapest countries in Europe. How about we show you how to spend even less? In this episode, we'll start off in one of the most known areas in Krakow, the main market square. In the middle of the oval-shaped Old Town, this square serves as the city's gravitational centre. It's one of the largest medieval squares in Europe and measures an incredible 200 metres squared. The square was raised up and built in 1257 after the city was flattened by a Mongol invasion and has not changed much since that period. Since then though, it has captured a lot of historical moments, including the comings and goings of kings, revolutions and events. The square has always been the place for public events. In the past it's where the king's justice was served and executions were carried out. One king, however, gave out a little bit more justice than he intended to. In the 17th century, the ruler of the city at the time hosted a fireworks display, which went horribly wrong. What was meant to be just a simple fireworks display turned into bloodshed, with the fireworks being fired accidentally at the crowds. Another famous event took place when the Nazis occupied Poland. Adolf Hitler held a rally here in which the result was to declare the square's name changed to Adolf Hitler Platz. It has since been rectified back to the common name of Rynek. These days, the events that are held here are less political and more tame. There is a yearly Christmas market that is held here, while outdoor concerts and festivals are also witnessed here. Despite all of this though, the main purpose of the square has always been commerce. In the middle of the square is a large market selling all sorts of items. It was essentially the first kind of shopping mall in the world, built as far back as the 14th century. The square also plays host to many monuments and the towering St Marys Basilica with its dark past. The cobblestone paths you find around the church used to be a cemetery, and there are still hundreds of skeletons lying beneath. Not a place to be around during a zombie apocalypse. The grisly metal neck restraints that can be found around the doors show the punishment that women endured who entered into debauchery. Every hour, a trumpeter rings out from one of the basilica's windows. It's said that it was started to announce the opening and closing of the city gates. It apparently ends abruptly, as during an invasion, the trumpeter was shot in the throat, unable to complete his song. There are so many legends to this square that even the pigeons have one. They are said to be the army of a duke from the 13th century that were turned into pigeons by a sorceress when he needed money to travel to Rome. They began to peck at the walls and gold coins started to fall. He never returned, however, and it's said that they still peck awaiting his arrival. The square is surrounded by many cafes and restaurants that have fantastic outdoor terraces. A great thing to try while sitting back and enjoying the square is a hot beer. Having a pint of Grzane Piwo is one of the ways to survive the freezing winter in Poland, or simply an enjoyable alternative to a popular drink. These beers are essentially the beer version of mulled wine and are made with spices like ginger, cloves and cinnamon. Almost all of the cafes around the square serve them, being a tradition to Poland. Another thing that is traditional in Poland is Zurek. Zurek is a type of soup where the bread that it normally comes in is actually the bowl it's served in. The soup is generally made from eggs, potatoes and meat and has been eaten in Poland since the Middle Ages. Traditionally, during Lent, the soup lacks meat to symbolise self-sacrifice. When the fasting period ends, a spicy white sausage is added, allowing it to be eaten in its full form for breakfast on Easter morning. A great place to try this nearby the square is Malto Restaurant. They have both an outdoor terrace and a cosy indoor seating area. Inside, you'll find an open kitchen so you can watch your food being cooked fresh in front of your eyes.
At the north end of the square is another great place to get a cheap meal. Milk bars are traditionally cheap restaurants that serve good food for great prices. They were first introduced as a way to feed people in Poland during tough times. They were supported by the government and flourished during periods of depression, communism and war. They were known as the working man's canteen, as workers would come here at the end of the day in order to get an affordable meal. The milk part of the name of these bars comes from the fact that the majority of the meals used to be heavily dairy-based, but also that they don't serve alcohol. These days, the majority of them are still run like a canteen, but the one we're going to recommend has a more traditional sit-down restaurant feel. Milkbar Tomasza has a large menu of different dishes on offer. But probably the best thing for budget travelers is the deal of the day that they offer, consisting of a soup and main for a set price. Although the majority of things in Krakow are within walking distance, you may still want to explore the area surrounding the main square. An easy and efficient way to get around is by scooter. In Krakow, you can hire scooters by the minute and easily park them in many central locations. It all runs through an app, and the main companies are Bolt, Lime, and Tier. Once you find a scooter on the map, unlock, ride, then park in their designated areas. It's as simple as that. One place you won't be able to scooter to, and is a couple of hours by bus from Krakow, is the small but popular town of Zakopane. This picturesque town is popular in winter for skiing and in summer for hiking, which is exactly what we are here to do. Although perhaps not the most well-known hike, the walk from the small starting point of Kuznice to the Czarny Gasienicowy lake is arguably one of the most picturesque. The yellow trail is the easiest to take, and this hike starts by winding upwards through thick forest. Eventually, the sudden break in forest catches you by surprise, with the first real view of the mountainous backdrop. The path carries on, but this time it is more open with less density, and you will see more of the valley below. Eventually, you will reach a cross-section of both trails. The blue trail would also have taken you to this point from Kuznice, and we recommend taking it down in order to complete the full loop. The trail will then join and continue on an easier path. You will go past picturesque old shepherd huts, which can make for an excellent photograph. In the middle of the hike is Hostel Muravanec, a place perfect if you want to stay in nature. The trail from Muravanec up to the lake is relatively easy and will have a breathtaking backdrop of the Gasienicowy Valley. Once you reach the top of the trail, a lake surrounded by mountain peaks will announce your arrival at Czarny Gasienicowy. This lake is a post-glacial lake that is the fourth deepest in the Tatra mountains. It sits at an altitude of 1,624 meters, almost 600 meters higher than the starting point in Kuznice. In order to get to the start of the hike, you can take a bus from near the central bus station in Zakopane. Go across the road to the opposite side of the station, and to the right-hand side of a roundabout, you will find a number of small minibuses. Take a bus here to Kuznice. When you arrive in Kuznice and are facing the cable car station, go left and keep walking straight past the restaurants and shops. A hut marks the start of the trail. From here, take a right and go on the yellow trail as we mentioned before.
Thought the Russians were enthusiastic about vodka? You've clearly not been to Poland. Poland is undoubtedly a country that is into its vodka. Here, there are so many types and unique flavours. Not everyone enjoys the classic flavourless vodka, and that's why the Poles began flavouring it. When you go into a shop here in Poland, in the vodka aisle you'll find many different colours, and this is due to the variety of flavours that are on offer. Cherry and hazelnut are among the popular choice, but you can also find flavours like lime, mint, and blackcurrant.
Many of the bars around Krakow also offer these vodkas at relatively cheap prices. A bar that is a little more expensive, but hosts a very nice atmosphere, is Harris Piano Jazz Bar. Here you can get a range of fancy cocktails while listening to live music. On certain nights, they even host open jam sessions. So if you fancy yourself a skilled musician, why not get up and play?
Talking of cool bars, you can find many of them in the Kazimierz district. It is famous for its cosy bars and great food, with plenty of places offering traditional Polish cuisine. You'll find lots of food stalls here too, offering takeaway options. Be sure to try Zapiekanka, which is a long sandwich similar in style to pizza. Kazimierz is known as the Jewish quarter in Krakow. In the 1400s, when the Jewish people were ordered to leave the city, they began to settle here. The town became very influential and started to prosper under the Jewish lifestyle, so it came as no surprise that when the Austrians invaded the city, they integrated it into it. It was the central community for Jewish life for 500 years, before it was purposely destroyed during World War II. After this, Jewish life had all but disappeared, and the area became a dodgy suburb of Krakow. It was largely forgotten due to the communist regime that was put in place, and was never fully recovered or repaired. This was until it gained worldwide recognition when Steven Spielberg's movie Schindler's List was filmed here. Schindler's List told the story of Oskar Schindler, a man who helped save many Jews during the time of the Holocaust. A sense of loneliness and despair can be discovered as you visit the Ghetto Heroes Square that is across the river from Kazimierz district. The chairs are said to represent the fact that children used to bring chairs instead of toys to the square in order to help their families before deportation to Auschwitz. Since the film though, the area has prospered and is now one of the most sought out areas by people who finally have begun to understand the history that the area holds. In fact, no other place in Europe conveys a sense of pre-war Jewish culture on the continent better than Kazimierz. And in terms of showing the horrors Jewish people actually had to face during the Second World War, where else displays them more vividly than Auschwitz? Auschwitz-Birkenau was Nazi Germany's largest concentration and extermination camp, where around 1 million people were killed. The camp is located near the industrial town of Auschwitz and was actually 3 different camps in one. One was a prison, another a slave labour camp, and the final, the extermination camp. The final solution is the term that was used when describing the plan that began the mass genocide of the Jewish people. It is thought that this camp was chosen because of the 44 parallel railway lines that made it easy to transport Jews from all over Europe. The trains that brought the prisoners to the camp were packed to the brim and were using nothing more than pens to keep the people in. When they arrived at the camp, things got even worse and the selection process began. It was up to the officers on duty who would be sent to work and who would be sent directly to the gas chambers to die. People arriving were known to rub blood on their cheeks in order to look healthier so as to be sent to work. This wasn't much better an option anyway, as the point of the labour camps was to exterminate through unbearable work conditions. Auschwitz was renowned for its ruthless abuse of prisoners. Block 11 was the worst for cruel punishment, and prisoners were frequently executed on the black wall in front of it. Some prisoners also had to endure the horrors of medical experiments. When the war was coming to the end, the Nazis ordered parts of the camp to be destroyed. The camp was evacuated as the Soviet Union closed in, and 58,000 prisoners were taken out on a death march to be slaughtered. To get to Auschwitz, you can either get a train from the main train station in Krakow, or a bus from the bus station. When you arrive, there is a free shuttle bus going between both of the camps, so you can witness all the horrors.
Krakow has so much history to it, but also many traditions too. One of these, a popular and cheap snack in Krakow, is the braided ring-shaped Obwarzanek Bread. This bread is boiled and then sprinkled with salt or sesame seeds. They can be found all over the old town, traditionally being sold from streetcars that have a fresh batch each day. Vendors sell out fast, and the bread is now considered as a regional food in Krakow, with it being difficult to find even in other Polish cities. Even though it's relatively cheap to eat out in Krakow, you may still want to cook your own food. The main shops you will find around the center is Biedronka and Zapka. These can easily be spotted by looking out for the B or smile signs. If you get a chance, look out for Carrefour for even cheaper prices and more variety for packed lunches. There are many great restaurants in Krakow though, and lots around the main square. For a great pizza and a great view of the square while you eat, go to the Spaghetti. The Spaghetti is an Italian restaurant that started due to their love of the country's food. They do all sorts of Italian food, and the prices are really good, considering the restaurant is situated right on the main square. They have an outdoor seating area, so in the warmer months it's a great place to dine. They also have an indoor sitting area though, with 3 different rooms styled in a typical Italian theme to provide an authentic atmosphere. Whichever you choose, you won't be disappointed.
One of the most famous sites in Krakow is Wawel Castle. Set atop a Jurassic limestone that was formed 150 million years ago, it's a great place to go. The castle has different sections to it, including a large courtyard, gardens, and church, and is a great place to see the river and city from up high. It is thought that people have been living here as early as the 7th century, and since then, many different nations have held residence here, from the Germans to Russians to Austrians. When the castle was occupied by the Austrians, it was actually converted into a military hospital. It is said that a terrible dragon used to live in a cave under the castle, and this legend is linked to the mythical beginning of Krakow city. The dragon was said to be undefeatable and that no weapon could kill it. The king at the time, King Krakow, offered his daughter's hand in marriage to any man who could slay the beast. Hearing this, many noble lords and great knights came to the city, but none prevailed. Until one day, a common man, a shoemaker, knocked at the city's gates and asked to give it a go. He asked for no weapons, only a lambskin and some sulphur. That night, he worked tirelessly, filling the lambskin with the sulphur. And once it was completed, he placed it in front of the dragon's den. In the morning, the dragon woke up and saw an easy meal in front of it and swallowed it whole. Then suddenly, bang! The dragon exploded, and the people of Krakow were free of the ferocious dragon. Today, the dragon's lair can be visited by descending a staircase at the top of the Thieves' Tower. The cave is 270 metres long, of which 81 metres are open to the public. The den has 3 main sections to it. The first, Section A, used to hold the water supply for Wawel's buildings. Section B is the largest area of the cave. It is said that part of this chamber was actually used as a banquet room by a tavern in the past. The last section, C, is where the main room of the tavern was. A metal sculpture of the dragon can be found at the foot of the castle, guarding the dragon's den. It has 7 heads, even though the majority of them look like limbs. Be careful, because it actually does breathe fire. The den is open from April until October, with varying times between 10 AM and 7 PM. We hope you enjoy your stay in Krakow. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel below for all the tips and tricks of many more hidden cities that we will explore.